Alright, I'm back. Let's go. Viper versus Fox Mahori. Load it up and we are going to be in any moment now. Yeah, so I looked at some of the games, but I just chose to pick one recorded game from each set. I looked at the kind of the length of them and like what Civ War it was in the case of players playing team tonight. Like the players played multiple games, but I just chose to pick one recorded game from each set. I looked at the kind of the length of them and like what Civ War it was in the case of players playing team random instead of home wars, to kind of pick one that I thought looked appealing. So we're gonna have Viper versus Fox Mahori now. Mahori, clanmate and regular opponent of his friend Leozim from the first game between Leo and Coven that we saw tonight. Another player who's very, very strong in full random, but on this occasion he's going to be playing team random civs on Arabia versus TheViper, who has come back to playing games on Voobly rated games in the past couple of days. Played against quite a number of people. Having taken something of a break after the Arabia Invitational, and perhaps now being lured back to activity by the upcoming team game tournament that you hear us banging on about all the time. So, taking a look at the maps now, we've got Mahori towards the top left in blue. This is a Saracen's War. Really nice back gold, super blue gold, just like the last game that we saw. Great backward line as well. This main stone is in a pretty nice position, close to his TC as well. The Viper go for the double ball steal if he sees that. You can but hope. Other than that though, second and third golds are in disgusting locations. This one is way out towards the middle of the map, and this one is, well, I wouldn't say this one is quite as disgusting because it's not as kind of forward as the other one, but it's still quite far away. So really nice safe gold from Mahori, safe wood to get him going in the early game, but he'll have to take substantial map control to secure the rest of his resources in the late game. And it's not really possible for him to wall very much at all across the front. Like, he's got huge open areas either side of the TC. Taking a look at Viper, he's playing in the yellow Saracens, of course. Really nice backwood line. This one off to the side as well isn't bad either. He's got a great stone in the back, but his gold's in a kind of nasty position as well as his secondary stone. Somewhat forward and kind of down and incline, which means it will be vulnerable to additional damage. His villagers will be vulnerable, or his units trying to defend it. Second and third gold and second stone, all in the same place basically. This corner of the map, it won't be any surprise to see him expanding his economy towards this eastern corner in the late game, but the issue with that is that in doing so he'll be kind of expanding in the opposite direction from his main stone and main gold. So Viper's going to have to secure quite a lot of map here as well, having to stretch his economy, his base basically all of the way along the right hand map edge almost, apart from this bottom area. Saw him doing a nice little bit of sheep blocking on the boar there to keep that villager alive and ensure that she could get to safety without being taken down by the boar, without taking too many hits in what was a fairly long boar lure with the potential for some downhill hits. Seeing 3 villagers on wood for him. Didn't see how early Mahori did a 4th on wood, so maybe we're gonna see a contrasting approach between the two players. Maybe we'll see scouts from Viper and a drush coming out from Mahori. I think both approaches very viable in a Saracen war. It's not as if like their bonuses really kind of force you to play in a certain way. Yeah, these are recorded games. Like, everything I'm casting tonight has been played in the last few days. the casting is live, if you like, because I'm casting them having not seen them before, but the games themselves are not being played right at this moment. They are recorded games. Let's have a look at scouting for both players. Viper knows everything basically about Mahori, including finding that back gold. Didn't quite stumble upon the second gold just yet, but he'll surely will when he goes to actually attack Mahori, unless he loops around the right hand side. Didn't find that third goal either, but he at least knows where the main goal is. Mahori got a good picture of Viper's base as well, also palisading the gold. Nice move from him to see how early and heavily Viper goes on gold. But Mahori didn't go with the Drush with the 4 wheels on wood. He may be someone who just does four wheels on wood scouts. Both players clicking up on 22 population after getting loom, splitting lumber camps, second lumber camps each, and we'll have to see if they do go for the scout approach. Viper putting down a barracks quite close to his TC. Mahori just prowling around with his scout, trying to see what Viper is up to. Where's Viper's scout at the moment? Prowling around in that eastern corner. He's located all of his extra resources now, so he knows just how important it is for him to control that area in the long term. But obviously in the short term, this is the area that he's going to be concentrating on. Yeah, the music from the last pause, unfortunately, I don't think I can share it because it's an unlisted video on Taft's personal YouTube account, which I don't know if he wants that video to be shared because it's not public. It's something he's made available to Voobly streamers, and because it doesn't mute the videos because it's not copyright or anything. So I don't know if I can share it. You're not the first person to ask, and unfortunately I've had to give the same response to everybody. I don't know where the music comes from either. He probably got it from like no copyright sounds, if I had to take a guess. But anyway, we see stables coming out for both players, so scout approach, which was pretty much indicated by their kind of populations that they went up on and build orders. Mahori's starting to do some walling to shield his wood line. It's going to be pretty effective. He'll presumably push out and do it across here, which would be the best idea here rather than just doing it here, because it ensures that any villagers can't be kind of picked off by archers sneaking here or something later on. Always worth checking when you're walling to kind of like just look behind your forest a little bit further to see if you can do the walls in a slightly more optimal place. Viper getting housed just momentarily there, but it really wasn't literally just for a moment. And his forward scout's taking a lot of damage from Mahori there. And that is going to give Mahori a bit of an advantage if those two groups of scouts that the players will have come together. But Viper with one extra scout on the field right now, and that's giving him the confidence to push out across the map a little earlier than Mahori, although as I say that, he comes to a standstill. Although perhaps the difference in military numbers between the two players stems from Viper adding an extra spear, I'm not sure. Got to see one extra scout. Okay, yeah, here's the extra spears from Viper. That's why the difference in military numbers. I'm sure that was what it must be. Viper sending not one, but two spearmen forward with his scouts to ensure that his own scouts cannot be driven away by Mahori simply attacking or defending with his own scouts. Always a good play, but for now, those spears and scouts are splitting up. Mahori actually with 3 scouts standing guard on his berries. Sorry, 3 spearmen standing guard on his berries right now, which is quite a high investment for what he has to protect. Like at the moment, like I'm surprised he just doesn't have like 1 on his berries and 1 on his gold. 2 archery ranges coming out for Mahori, so going to be making that archery range transition fairly early on. For Viper, we don't see those ranges coming out just yet. Okay, there's the first one. So Mahori just a little bit faster with switching right now. Switching to his point of view, he's also floating a good bit more food at this point as well. Could well be a function of the fact that Viper made those extra spearmen, but also we can see his scout numbers have increased. He's on 6 now, whereas I think Mahori only added 3 on top of his starting one, which will still be at full hit points. Whereas Viper suffering that damage early on. 3 hits basically. 2 scouts move towards each other. Who's on patrol? Seeing Viper was definitely on patrol. Don't know if Mahori was, but it didn't matter, for he was locking and he reacted very, very quickly to something that could have gone badly for him with the extra scouts being there for Viper. Not a lot happening thus far, really. Both players being pretty cautious. Both players have invested heavily in spears and kind of shut down the enemy's scout rush at some cost to themselves. But considering the play was more or less mirrored, except for Viper making a couple of extra scouts, it was no big deal in the end. Mahori did switch with into the archer transition just a tiny bit earlier, getting up those buildings a bit faster, but it's not gonna actually matter a great deal. Villager count basically identical between the 2 players, and once the not idle TC time, but the non-villager time from wheelbarrow finishes, the villager count will equalise. Both players doing 2 range transition from scouts, just being very passive. Town watch kicking in for Mahori, so it's really just waiting for somebody who's going to be the most adventurous and send units across the map to actually mount a combined arms attack with scouts and archers, and perhaps some spearmen thrown into the mix as well, because at the moment we're just seeing passiveness from both players. Mahori, by virtue of having put these palisades on Viper's gold, keeps making me think that an amazing raid is coming in on Viper's gold every time I look at the minimap, and I forget that those palisades are there. Look at this. I've been talking about how similar the play is between the 2 players. Both players got wheelbarrow a little while ago, and now they're coming up to the castle age exactly the same time with more or less the same populations. Couple of units lead on both the villager and military side for Viper, but it's more or less neck and neck. And after the frenzied action and excitement of that Coven versus Nikov game previously, we're now seeing a very, very slow burning game here. This could work out pretty well for Mahori if he's on control there, in terms of attacking some of Viper's archers and stopping them from becoming crossbows, but he chose to retreat, perhaps wisely. Those scouts are pretty damaged. Well, sorry, they've just taken all that damage from the archers. What am I talking about? But there was no fletching actually just kicked in now, which meant that 4 scouts could have done a good amount of damage there, and that, even though they probably would have lost the fight, perhaps it would have been a good use for them to reduce the number of archers available for Mahori to upgrade to, for Viper to upgrade to crossbows in a moment. But Mahori's going to take this fight at least a little bit with his archers now, and he's got more there, picking up one of Viper's coming back with all those scouts though, and maybe we'll see these 2 armies clashing before they hit the castle age. Either way, Viper's returning home because he feels that his gold is pretty exposed to an army of this size, and he knows that Mahori is pretty well shielded as well. Both players hitting the castle age. Bodkin Arrow and crossbow for Mahori. Same for Viper, but Viper also getting bowsaw straight away. So not like the last game where we saw a 42-minute bowsaw kicking in. We'll see what bowsaw timing is like for Mahori, because that can be pretty decisive if there's a big difference between the two players. Viper taking this fight pretty nicely outside his own base right now, although the upgrades are a moment faster for Viper. Like Mahori has basically been trying to get out of there and has suffered losses whilst trying to get out of there, and then, upon realising that he was taking too much damage trying to retreat, he turned to fight, only for Viper's upgrades to kick in and clean up the rest of it. And now we see 19-9 military in favour of Viper. He's also taken that 4 villager lead, as well as getting that bowsaw straight away, which I hope I'm not being dumb and just saying, oh, Mahori doesn't have it. Let me check. The game's not live, so it won't continue whilst Mahori didn't get it. Right. That's pretty big, because 4 villager lead plus bowsaw works out as a sizable difference when the players only have smallish economies at this stage of the game. And Mahori going with the early ballistics, so which is pretty unfortunate considering he's just lost half of his army, will stop Viper microing against him to this extent. But this has been a really bad trap from Mahori's point of view, that his villagers got caught at the bottom of that hill. It's so easy for Viper to pick up a few there. It's denying a TC. I'm going to presume that since Viper didn't go ballistic straight away, he's already got TCs. We'll check at his base in just a moment once these two armies disengage. Viper may choose to try and take that fight on the hill anyway. He's probably seen from the volleys that Mahori's been launching at him that Mahori does have the ballistics, but he's taking on the challenge anyway and not really connecting with most of his shots right now, and Mahori is trading better here. That blue smudge on the radar of Mahori's gold, so Viper's gold, is still distracting me. So Mahori cleans up Viper now, and the military numbers are pretty even. Seems like the players were struggling with some lag. Viper actually causing it, but saying it should stop soon. Military's pretty even, but Viper has jumped out to an 8 villager lead. TC, where are they? He's put 1 here. So this is a pretty aggressive TC, just pushing out into the middle of the map, taking control of this wood line. But the nice thing about it is that if he builds up in this area, defends this area, it means that he takes control of this commanding hill in the middle of the map that is also the avenue towards his gold mine, main gold. So I like the ambition there in terms of securing that amount of map control. And of course he was able to do that because he was being aggressive, probing around Mahori's base. So 3 TCs for Mahori just right now. Viper actually only on the 2 for the moment. We saw University come out for him. Again, I didn't spot if he had ballistics. I'll just quickly check. Where am I looking? I always struggle to find it in all of this. Okay, he didn't get ballistics just yet. But Town Watch. Okay, even as I said that, he was getting it. Damn, that was a waste of time, wasn't it? But Town Watch coming out for Viper. I think Mahori got that in Feudal Age. I'm not going to bother checking that and bore you all to tears. But Jordan 23 in particular, huge advocate of Town Watch, and I think Viper more or less with the same school of thinking of the early Town Watch is great. And that Town Watch kicking in enabled Viper to see that coming from further away just in time and avoid what could have been huge number of losses on his woodline there as those crossbows moved in. Meanwhile, Viper's crossbows going through the walls of Mahori, thoroughly outnumbered by the crossbows that Mahori has, but with the hill advantage, neither player bothering to micro, with both of them having ballistics, and Viper not choosing to get out of there either. I mean, I think he's traded okay there, just due to the hill. But Viper with a 9 villager advantage, despite the fact that for the moment his opponent was on more TCs than him. couple of knights coming out for Viper now. He's got +1 armor, so reasonably able to shrug off a few crossbow volleys, but not as tanky as +2 knights are. Bloodlines is there too, though. But the thing with the knights as well, they make a nice distraction whilst the ballistics crossbowmen pick off the enemy crossbows. You know, the crossbows struggle with kiting back and hit and running the knights because they're just taking fire from the enemy crossbows all the time. Viper with that third TC now in the southern part of his base. Not yet choosing to do like another TC on one of his secondary golds on the right hand side just yet, preferring to secure wood lines. Mahori reacting on time there to get out of the way of that TC before too many villagers could fire upon it and start taking down crossbows quickly. Still looking pretty similar for both players. Around 20 military for both. Just kind of raiding with crossbows. Or at least attempting to. We do see a mangonel coming from Mahori though, so it's the first player to add some siege. Viper getting thumb ring though, which is a huge upgrade, and also an earlier handcart. I think the difference in economy between the two players and the fact that Viper's able to get stuff like Thumbring and Handcart is like a snowball effect from him getting Bowsaw straight away at the start of Castle Age. Really does help with just accelerating that economy. Actually floating quite a bit of gold as well, whereas for Mahori it's more the food and wood economy that's looking in a bit better shape. Not surprising considering the upgrades that Viper just clicked though. And I think this mangonel and potentially even all the crossbows could have got cleaned up, but a nice shot landing there on the crossbows of Viper, and Mahori probably would have the HP to take that fight if he had just a couple more crossbows there, but Viper's numbers just too great, and Mahori's just going to retreat to where his reinforcements are coming in. Handcuff being researched from him, but that's a minute or two later than Viper. Once again a sign that Viper's, oh, and Mahori, you're on stand ground or no attack. Is now retreating to the top of that hill, but it has just come too late as Viper took advantage of the fact that those crossbows were just doing nothing. Some weird moonwalking going on there. Almost thought we were on AoHD for a moment then. And the Villager League really starting to open up, despite the fact that both players are on the same number of TCs. I think I'll do a check on that in a moment. Viper doing a better job of keeping them running and getting ahead now. Looks like 2 villagers going down. Well, there potentially could have been more here. Although most of those are crossbow deaths. Actually, the villager lead opening up to that amount must mean that some of these are stone miners that have gone down as well. I was focusing more on the fight in the south and not seeing the one in the north that was going on at the same time. That may have been why Mahori's left those crossbows on stand ground just for a moment, because he was trying to react to Viper's crossbows hitting his stone mine and his wood line up here. So perhaps when I was saying that Viper's keeping those TCs working better, it was a bit of an injustice. But yeah, Mahori's still under 3 for now. We'll check to see if Viper added more than a third one in a moment once we see this small band of crossbowmen being cleaned up. Viper with 1, 2, 3, 4 now, yeah, so it's a mixture. The villager difference is a mixture of that effective raid that must have happened up here, and Viper getting onto that 4th TC, securing the extra goals for himself. And Mahori's actually had his 4th one denied just now. I was thinking I'd miscounted just for a second, and that he was already on 4 and that was a 5th, but that doesn't seem to be the case. And Viper will just cling to that position now, camp that hill, because that is a sizable investment of resources by Mahori that he doesn't really want to delete, and he can use the hill just to lay siege to that TC. Mahori's going to bring a mangonel over to try and reclaim it, but Viper will have the hill advantage, and there are a lot of crossbows there that, with the hill advantage against the mangonel, will make it really easy for him to micro against it. Viper's also clicked up to the Imperial Age, whereas Mahori's sinking resources into stuff like heavy plough and gold shaft mining that's going to presumably delay his time a moment longer. But we'll switch to his point of view just now, just to see how he's looking in terms of resources. A long way away. He's only got about half the food he needs and not much gold in the bank. Gold shaft mining obviously going to help with that, but it's going to be a while before he's clicking up. Viper may well be in the Imperial Age before he clicks up. Mahori doing some good counter raiding here on Viper's woodline, picking up 5 or so vills there. And Mahori did manage to power build this TC, picks up Viper's mangonel on the hill, and that's bought himself some breathing room at least. But Viper now with a 34 villager advantage, and as it stands, at least a couple of minutes, potentially even longer, before Mahori clicks up to the Imperial Age. Castle coming up on this middle plateau for Viper, in a great position considering, you know, there's a large chunk of Viper's economy there, and it controls pretty much that entire left half of the map from its commanding position on top of the plateau. Redundant mangonel shot from Viper there. All the crossbows going down anyway. Pretty funny. It was almost like, I don't know, rubbing salt into the wound, like all your crossbows died and I'm going to mangonel them anyway just to show I could have killed them even more. Mahori with an extra town centre in the middle of the map, but that is going to get discovered by Viper right now. Should be 1 or 2 easy kills on the farmers by the crossbows uphill if Viper sees it, but he's just going to go walking on by. Issue with that TC is not only is it way away from the rest of Mahori's base in a highly indefensible position, but also possibly unbeknown to him. Let's have a look. Oh yeah, he doesn't know about the castle. And okay, see the GG coming in. I can understand why. Imperial Age time has basically left Mahori thinking that he's dead. He will have been looking at potentially at the score difference as well to know that Viper is just ahead of him in terms of like population and resources, but also Mahori on the way to Imperial Age. Viper already there for a little while. Upgrades are going to kick in, and it's just being slower through the game state. I think, you know, we didn't see a game here where players were really taking it to each other like with Nikov and AoCZone in the previous game, but what we actually saw was players playing very, very similar approaches, but Viper's macro skills just getting ahead, basically. Just being a little bit better at the multitasking, slightly better raiding. This one would have been pretty effective, but unfortunately we were looking at the other fight that was going on down here whilst the bulk of the villagers were going to go down. But ultimately you just got the villager lead slightly earlier, got upgrades slightly earlier, like instant bow sword at start Castle Age, handcart earlier. Mahori just a step behind really. There wasn't a drastic difference between the two players apart from Viper just accelerating through the game just slightly faster due to macro, essentially. As shown by the villager difference there and just resources collected. So, almost a damp squib after the excellent game we saw between Nikov and AoCZone. But there you go. Let's line up the next opponent for the Viper on the scoreboard, which is going to be none other than the mini Viper, his countryman MBL.